Okay, I'm here at Marcos' spot, and this is our first, I guess we can call it a session, second visit here. But what are we here to do, Marcos? Let me first introduce myself. My name is John Crocker. I'm here with Marcus Bitetto, my professor, and we're recording the events of this for 30 minutes as part of our, let's call it, educational project. Marcos and I will be talking about how we can provide education, career development, and the things that's needed to help our community improve. We'll be talking on many subjects. We'll be discussing many areas and issues, but basically it's about lifelong learning. Would you say that is?
Yes.
The next voice you hear will be Marcus Bitetto. Introduce yourself and tell me a little bit about yourself, Marcus.
Okay, my name is Dr. Marco.
Speak up loud, we know, little girl.
Okay. My name is Dr. Marco Bitetto. I am multiply disabled. One of my disabilities is a severe visual impairment that I am legally blind. I also have a language processing disability and a writing disability. The writing disability is called dysgraphia, and the language processing disability is related to my ability to try to learn and utilize different languages.
Okay. Where were you born? Give me a little bit about your history. Where were you born?
Okay, I was born on the South Shore of Long Island in a town called
Canarsie,
which is part of Brooklyn.
Okay.
It's right near.
What year?
That was in 1965.
1965. All right. We're doing the chronology.
And I was born at the time with multiple medical problems that were congenital.
Do you want to mention them? Is it okay?
No problem.
Let's kick it out.
They were kidney problems, and the kidney problem was congenital. As a result of chronic illness as a child and multiple surgeries, at the age of 7, I lost my vision. I also was one of many, at the time, disabled children that became part of a class action suit against the New York Board of Education in 1973. That was before the Greenberg Law passed. At that time,
and the Greenberg Law was?
The Greenberg Law stated that disabled children had the right to an adequate public education, either through the public school system or through taxpayer-financed private education.
Was that a precursor to the learning disabled discrimination against people who had disabilities? Did it come out of that?
That came indirectly out of that. The first step towards the Greenberg Law passing was the federal law passing, dealing with non-discrimination against the disabled in access to public facilities.
Okay, Was that a federal law?
That was a federal law.
Okay.
The Greenberg Law is a state law that is particular to New York State.
Okay, but it also probably has a federal genesis in terms of making it into law. Going through the House of Representatives and then Congress and then signed by the President. Okay. Just a little information so that we'll all know the process, because our thing, which we're going to call lifelong learning, or according to Marcos and John, we talk about a learning process.
Yeah,
Information, education, and all those things that go with it. Thank you. Continue. I'm sorry to cut you off.
okay, that's okay. As a result of the problems with early education, I had only 3 years of prior schooling. My education was primarily self-taught.
Prior to the 7th year, you went through the normal system of education. Prior to your disability.
Prior to the 7th year, I was educated in a parochial system.
Crocker system. Okay, which one was that?
It was at the time called Holy Family Catholic School.
Holy Family Catholic School. Okay. Okay. So you was brought up in a Catholic environment in terms of education.
Correct.
Okay. Which was a parochial school run by the Archdiocese.
If I remember correctly, at that time it was run by the Archdiocese.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All
I don't know now.
Yeah, but I'm talking about then. We're doing it in chronology.
Yeah.
Okay, very good. I'm just getting some insight verbally and a picture of that time. So as I document and we go through it, it'll be me experiencing some of the time, the area, Canarsie, and so on. So as we, present our documentary
Yeah.
according to Marcos, right? Okay. So Canarsie at that time, I was in the 60s. I was living in Canarsie in the 60s. I was living on Hagerman Street.
Hey.
Yeah, I went on the police department in 1959, and in 1957, and in 1959, I got transferred to Brooklyn. And then I think in the late 50, I moved to Hagerman Street in Canarsie, in East New York.
Hey.
So that was like adjacent to Canarsie.
Yeah.
So
At the time that I was growing up, Canarsie was very much like a...
What was the ethnic population then?
It was a combination Eastern European, also Italian, German, mixture. Even some Russian.
Okay, mostly European.
Right.
A sprinkling of African American.
From all over the place.
A sprinkling of African American.
Yeah.
Okay.
The African American families that were there long before the other immigrant groups.
Right, I hear you. Okay.
And Canarsie at that time, I don't know if you remember, they had farms.
Yeah, I know. Canarsie was the country at one point. When like I say, I'm 85, so I'm aware of Brooklyn, Manhattan, and the Bronx, and all of those. I've traveled and lived in all of those boroughs. So when you say Canarsie, I lock into the time that I was in Canarsie, which was in the late 50s and early 60s. So I'm right in time on what you're talking about, what it was, right?
In that time period, they didn't even have paved streets.
Why? That was like the country. It was the country. It went right to the water. Canarsie was the country.
Right.
To Brooklyn.
Avenue was where the pier was for the beach there, the Gateway National Park beach.
Right.
Then they made the road and they paved the road and they moved the pier up to the far end of
So when you
Rockaway Park.
Okay, so when you finished up the school, then you went into a special, I guess you call it special ed did at that time? No, all private? All on your own?
What happened was my parents, because there was no way for me to get public education, because the public school system because they had no facilities for
To deal with.
disabled.
Okay.
They classified me as mentally retarded.
Okay, they put you in that category.
Right.
CRMD.
Right. And of course, my parents didn't believe I was mentally retarded because I was too high functioning.
I hear you. Okay. Well, even though you might have been disabled or visually
Right.
impaired, you was doing it.
I was reading and writing 2 languages
At 9 to 10 years old.
at the age of 7 and 8.
Get out of here. Where were your parents born?
My parents came from southern Italy.
Okay. That's the Bitetto name. I should have known that.
Yeah.
Okay.
In fact, let me show you what my parents looked like. Here's what my father looked like, and here's what my mother looked like. In the picture of my father, you'll also see myself at age 8.
In the meantime, we'll take a break. It's like been a half an hour, I think. And we'll take a break. And don't cut it off.
No, I'm not. I'm going to pause
Get
it.
out
Oh.
what we want, but we want straight up.
Oh.
Okay, all right. Okay.
Charge this up.
What was your father's first name?
His first name was Vincenzo.
Vincenzo. Vincenzo.
His
What
full
part?
name was Vincenzo Luigi Bitetto.
I hear you. What part of Italy was that? You
Bari.
Who?
Bari.
Bari. Okay. The southern tip?
Right.
Okay. Was he an intellectual?
Unfortunately, he never had the opportunity to finish schooling.
Mm-hmm.
But had he would have been an engineer because he was fantastic with
What
his
was his
hand
trade?
working with
He
machinery.
was good. He was a skilled craftsman.
Very, very good at figuring things out.
Mm-hmm.
He used to take things apart, put them back together, and get them to work.
Was that his job or work, or that was his part-time?
No, that was his avocation.
Okay, he was a fixer.
Right.
So he was a craftsman. Anything.
Everyone in the neighborhood would go to him whenever they wanted
Okay.
something
And
fixed.
he would be called an artisan.
We could call him an artisan.
I'm saying in classification of...
Oh. But in terms of work,
Yeah.
he was a longshoreman.
Okay. So he knew the mechanics of everything that had to be done. He knew about organizing. He knew about lists. He knew about he was a craftsman.
Right.
You know, longshoremen are workers, but they learn a lot of how things work, about ships, about loading, about transferring merchandise. That longshoreman was a part of a process of merchandise delivery
Yeah.
on a ship.
Right.
A lot of knowledge comes through when you're dealing with exporting and importing goods.
And at the time
And
that
people.
right, at the time that he started out as a longshoreman, it was during World War II.
World War II, okay. So we're talking about the 40s when he came over.
He came over actually earlier than that, because when he came over, he was a teenager.
Okay.
So he came over around 1913.
So his parents brought him over.
He came over alone
Get out of here.
at the age of 13.
At the age of 13, he was able to come over by himself
Yes.
and go to Ellis. He didn't have to go to Ellis
He
Island.
went to Ellis Island
At 13,
at
who was the
13.
guardian of people that went with him?
He was with an American family,
Okay, American family, yeah.
and he worked for an iceman that used to deliver ice.
Okay. Uh-huh. My uncle used to deliver ice in the 30s and 40s, where he had to get a block of ice, put it on his back and walk up 3-4 flights of stairs.
Yeah.
That's also when they had laundry delivered by truck or by wagon.
Horse and wagon.
Yeah.
Horse
And then they had the Iceman who would have a long cake of ice. That
have the pinchers.
the pinches. Throw the ice on his back and walk up the flight.
Put the rubber on the shoulder and put the ice on.
My uncle did that. My uncle did that in Harlem. So that was a means of working at that particular time.
Right.
That was before the Frigidaire.
Way before the Frigidaire. He came here in 1913.
My mother was born 1913.
Right.
Okay, so now I have the time of him being maybe 13 or 14 years older than my mother.
Mm-hmm.
Now, and I'm going to parallel him and my mother with 13 years older in Canarsie in Brooklyn, and my mother in Harlem, born in Harlem. So a lot of things will come out of our history.
Yeah, when he came here,
Mm-hmm.
he was originally living in the Manhattan area. Because he was living with an American family.
From Rome also? Or European family?
Unfortunately, I don't remember too much of what he...
But he was a workman, and he was able to support himself by what he could do. By his skills. Right. So he was like a handyman. He could fix this, he could fix that. My father was like that. He was a superintendent in a building on 10th Street. He fixed everything. If it came down to fixing it, he fixed it.
Hey.
So he was a fixer. Let's call both pops fixers. Okay, all right.
He used to go around the New York City area on a bicycle. He used to go back and forth over the bridge. The Brooklyn Bridge.
Very good, very good. Okay. We had that coffee now. We did that.
Okay.
Father born in Italy. Came here when he was 13 years old. By himself. He was a fix-it man. We would call him an artisan. If he was coming from the Virgin Islands, the Caribbean, they call that person an artisan. Who do the whole thing,
Hey.
Many of them were masons and carpenters and crafts people of different kind. They learned the different skills in order to be able to, earn a living. Exploder, yeah, okay, I got that. I'll review that, talk briefly about that. Okay, I also got your relativistic
navigation-based system.
Okay, you can briefly talk about that after we get through the interview. You wrote something on self-employment. We'll talk briefly on that.
Yeah, that came from the Commission for the Blind and Visually Handicapped, and is also the same thing is used for VESID.
For VESID, right?
Yeah. The two agencies use the same criteria for self-employment.
Okay. Do you think that you can be, do you feel that you're employable? I do.
Definitely.
Okay, now, I'm acting as an employment and vocational counselor. That puts focus on what we're doing in terms of the challenged people. Because there's people that are challenged physically, there's people that are challenged visually, that can be employed, who do have the education, and are not able to get employment because of whatever reason, maybe the discrimination. Development. You are mentoring and tutoring me in terms of mathematics. Our trade-off is that we're doing these things to provide an educational and employment program for our community, which is intergenerational. Okay.
My wall of fame.
Right, then we'll take, what do you call it, a wall of fame?
Correct. When you get a chance, you can actually turn on the light and you can actually take a look.
So we're going to take a picture of the wall of change, which would include all the things that's there.
Right.
Your library is quite extensive, I see. It's new?
Yeah, it's unfortunately I used to have a far more extensive library. I had a library that had over $10,000 worth of books.
What happened to it?
When I became homeless, that
Knocked you out of the box.
all that ended up in the garbage.
Okay. Oh, talking about homelessness, which is the issue of today, I heard. How did you become homeless?
I became homeless because, not as a result of anything I did, but the Social Security system decided that I wasn't saving up the prescribed amount of money for my plan to achieve self-support, which was to achieve my doctorate degree.
Okay.
Then, after they terminated my plan to achieve self-support, they then said I saved money and I had resources, so they terminated my
So you got it.
disability.
So you got into a program after you finished school, or while you?
No. I finished my bachelor's program,
Okay.
and I did enough credits in
Was that on the vested?
No, that was through the Plan to Achieve Self-Support System.
Plan to Achieve Health Support System. That's what.
PASS. PASS. Plan to Achieve Self-Support System.
That was part of the PASS program of the.
Social Security Administration.
Exactly, I know about that.
SSD.
SSD, right? So you went through that program. You had counsel. They set up things for you. Blah 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 blah.
No counseling. What you do, you set up
A plan.
a plan.
And
You then present it to the
Social Security.
intake worker at Social Security. Now, hopefully, the intake worker that you're dealing with knows about the plan to achieve self-support. And what happens is they go and they review it, and they say, you need to do this modification, you need to do that modification, you do the modification, and they approve it.
Okay.
Then you're allowed to save money above and beyond the resource limit
I know about
to
the plan.
apply
Toward your
whatever goal.
So that was goal orientated.
Right. Using that, I got my bachelor's degree, and I got enough credits
You
to
got to
be
be a
considered, Bachelor of Science.
bachelor of science.
Yeah.
And bachelor of science in what area?
Computer Systems Engineering.
So you got a degree in computer systems engineering. Okay,
Right.
from where?
State University of New York.
SUNY, right?
Right.
As part of the PASS program, right?
Right.
Okay, after that.
After that, I then,
Want to get a chair?
no, that's okay. I have a chair here.
Okay, sit down and relax. There you go. That will be comfortable while you do what you do. This is our spot, right?
So, I then,
You
when
graduated
I
from SUNY?
graduated from SUNY, I had enough graduate credits because due to a paperwork glitch, they weren't graduating me on time. So I decided I'm still in school. I'm being paid to be a student. My tuition at the time was $0 because they had, at that time, SUNY had $35 of credit.
Right,
and
right,
if
right.
you couldn't afford that, you'd sign the bottom of the
Right.
form, and they would waive even the tuition.
Ah,
Plus, I had scholarships and grants.
the whole junk.
I was being paid to be a student, so
Hey.
I had my own electronics laboratory. And in one of the pictures, you can actually see a bit of a 3B2 700 that I went and I bought surplus and I rebuilt and got it to work.
Our educational journey is almost similar, because I got a Bachelor of Science degree while I was in prison, and the money probably was supported by the state education department, SUNY, because you don't get no degrees unless you go through the state education department. So I wound up going to school to get a Bachelor of Arts and a Bachelor of Science while incarcerated. Now, you go there, you take it from there. So again, our lives are similar in terms of our achievement,
Right.
our goals, and the
Now,
opportunity.
After about a year, I filled out the paperwork and everything for another plan to achieve self-support, to do my doctoral program.
Okay, now you're stepping up under the PASS plan, SSD program.
Now, they had me where they approved it, and then they were doing a dance that they didn't
Yeah,
want.
because they hadn't gone to the level. Most people ended with their BA or
Right.
BS, and you go into another level, so they got to write another plan.
They weren't having it.
They was
So what happened was, after when I just about finished the course of study,
beyond the BS.
beyond the bachelor's degree, I had already prepared the doctoral dissertation and submitted it, and it was at that point that they terminated my plan to achieve self-support and determined that I had resources when I shouldn't have had resources. So they terminated my disability.
Oh, so somebody said you're achieving too much, or it's costing too much.
Achieving too much.
Or you going beyond
Right.
the sphere that we have set
So
up.
they went in, they had to stomp on me.
Yeah, because you're getting too much. And remember, and I know about the past plan because I researched it, I worked with it, I've written past plans for people. Once the counselor gets out of his area of expertise, he has to submit certain forms and certain documentation. If he's not ready to understand it, it's work for him.
Yeah.
So if you get a dunderhead who reads that you can't do this and you can't do that, it's easy for him to say, no, that doesn't qualify, rather than be supportive of you pushing it
Right.
to another level. So if his supervisor said, well, no, we don't have this according to so and so and so, she stops it. So then you become a nuisance, a pain in the ass, because you're asking for things that they don't even know nothing about. You're taking them on a trip to the land of Obladi. They don't know where they're going, how they're going. You're showing them how to help you, and now you're getting more than they get. Because you can bet the person that was interviewed didn't have no degree. Period. And did not understand where you was going or how you was going or how even the hell you got to the point where you're going as a visually impaired thing. So they feel you faking now. You got to be faking. How you do all this and he can't see?
Well, it's not so much that they were thinking I was faking. They just said, you have too many resources now.
And they define resources as what?
I had saved money to pay for the degree.
Which is part of the plan.
Right.
Okay.
So
did you
they-
save too much money?
It was well over the limit.
Okay. To save more money than they anticipated. So when and you had to bank it because it was part of the past plan.
Right.
So when somebody audit and say, he saved up $100 and some odd $1,000, he's got a free education, what the hell is he doing here still being supported as a person who is challenged? Would that be logical to accept?
That could very well be the case.
Not could very well be.
The actual judge said,
Determined.
good luck.
Yeah, because remember the plan is, and I know the documents because I work with them. The plan would say you can save as much you would. You with your smart ass, you were saving money like horse shit, going to school free.
No, I wasn't going to school free. I was paying.
Well, you was paying by what money?
What I was doing, I was paying a little bit at a time.
By what money?
By the money I was saving.
From where?
From working.
What about the money that you were saving from the grants and things that you were receiving?
I wasn't getting
What
grants.
were you working at? You was working?
I was working.
And you were working and getting money from the government for going to school?
Right. Part of the PASS program is that you're able to save above and beyond.
Okay, but you was working, making a nice salary.
That I was.
Oh dear, you got a grin, because I know, because you learned how to work the fucking system. Straight up, okay?
You have to.
So
because if you don't-
everything that was available, you took advantage of it. I don't mean you misdid it, but you used the law to create the condition how much money was you working? Who were you working for?
I was working at the time for a company called ACCI.
Eight what?
ACCI. It was an international engineering company.
So you making
I was making $135 an hour.
$135 an hour
Right.
as a consultant.
As a worker, working part-time.
Now, working part-time, making $135 an hour, being subsidized by the PASS plan, you was sticking the city, the state, and the federal government up. Without a gun. With your knowledge. You were butchering them off.
But I was able to actually
I'm not saying that's negative. I'm just looking at the scenario of what happened because I'm a cop, ex-cop. I know how to do investigative work. I've been through the system. So you were using it, not misusing it. You was using it to your advantage. And all of a sudden somebody looked at your bank account and said, how the fuck, excuse my language, how the hell did he get $100 and some odd $1,000 as a disabled person working for the government? So we got to get him the hell out of here. Because he do not fit the criteria of a disabled person no more. So your smart ass had saved up over 100. Tell me how many people can save up $100,000, go to school, work the government, work everything, because you was a smart ass that used your intelligence. Knowledge is power, as you say so many times, right? So with the knowledge you had, you used it to save your money. Now, okay, so now you kicked out of the PASS plan. Okay, you got saved up $100,000. You wasn't able to be able to hide that, because if you had, you would have been able to not get kicked off and continue to, but somebody did
But
something.
I wasn't hiding it.
I know, but you wasn't hiding it. But if I did an investigation, somewhere along the line, I would say that you reached the top limit of money and went beyond, top limit of education and went beyond. So you use your intelligence to work the system. That's not negative, that's not positive, that's using your intelligence and your knowledge, okay? So you're a smart ass. An Italian smart ass. All right? And your dad showed you how to not be a smart ass, your survival instinct. Your ability to know and grow and develop, okay? And that's a compliment, and at the same time, it's a useful tool that you can, if you know. So the idea is to get to know how you can do what you can do at the moment. So that's our mantra. You can do it, but you got to learn how to do it. You got to learn systems. You got to learn mathematics, because it's all about math. That's why our conversation, our thing is about mathematics. Because what is mathematics to you?
Mathematics is a process by which you derive a solution to a problem using a fixed set of rules.
That sounds like an algorithm in a short term. Now,
Mathematics and algorithms are actually one and the same.
exactly.
That's where we get the term from an Arabic mathematician called algorithmic.
Right now. So what we need to do is not lose focus that our job is to set up the algorithm for these 50% who drop out of school, for this group of people who don't have what they could get. The light at the end of the tunnel, if you will. I'm going to show you how to do this. If you know, teach. If you don't know, learn. If you don't want to teach and learn, sit down, shut up, and learn. Because here's somebody, here's a circumstance that can show you how to do A, B, C, in spite of your AKA disability. So disability ain't got a fucking thing to do with you succeeding. I'm just saying this to the public that who we are addressing. So we do have a method for individuals as well as groups to go beyond where they are if they're considered A, B, C, D in that category. So you can survive. So we're talking about a motivational group, which is probably what you were trying to do as you were doing it, because you wasn't motivating nobody but yourself, which is good. Now you can motivate other people who talk about their anxiety, who talk about they ain't got no money, who talk about they're visually impaired, who talk about they in wheelchairs, who talk about they can't get upstairs, because climb up 3 flights of stairs on your hands and your knees. If you want to be able to get something, you got to do the work.
And when I started out with nothing.
You started out with a desire.
But
that is not nothing.
The desire was there, but the resources weren't available.
So we're talking about resource enhancement and learning.
Wow.
So our mantra is R.
And the way that I learned how to get some of the resources was that I got hooked up with the National Federation for the Blind, and I begged, borrowed, and panhandled whichever way I needed to get money to go down to the National Convention, which at that time was in Phoenix, Arizona, to find out about the special program called the Plan to Achieve Self-Support.
Mm-hmm.
That's how everything started.
Okay, so now, if we use the term resource enhancement and leadership, that would be appropriate in terms of what we're doing.
Yes.
Now, would you believe I attended Fordham University Graduate School, and they had a program called Resource Enhancement and Leadership. And I'm 12 credits short of getting my master's in that program. So we're just phasing back some things that we both have gone through in terms of tools to be able to help the community at large.
Right. And
And we know how to define whatever the community. So nobody got to tell us what community we're talking about. We define our own community, whatever that is. Black, white, green, orange, disabled, naked people, whatever community we have identified, that's the community that we're helping.
the thing is,
We're talking about a haven for help, hope, and healing.
hey,
Would that define who we are?
yes. But
What's the
the
book?
thing is, it's irrelevant of what the person perceives as their actual limitation that society claims is their limitation, because if they actually have the knowledge, they have the power to become self-actualized.
So then our game, our focus, and our goal is to help them to get the knowledge and the wisdom and the understanding to become self-actualized.
Correct.
And setting up that kind of process and that kind of goal and directive is how we can say to people who really are interested in helping people or helping developing a healing or helping developing an educational process to get down with it. Or otherwise you're bullshit. You know what I mean? Otherwise, if you can't show how you can help a person who's already been identified as having that, who professes that he wants to go further, and you don't know how to get the resources, then you're in the wrong profession. Not you, but the agency is in the wrong profession.
Hey.
You gotta have a resource enhancement and a leadership program. Whether it's in the prison, whether it's in the hospital, whether it's in a psychiatric thing, but we're talking about a national, international idea of learning, understanding, growth, development, all the things that you've already gone through and are still working toward help.
But here's the trick. It has to be self-initiated.
Okay, you say self?
And that's the hardest thing to do when everyone else is trying to push you down to fight against the forces of the downward momentum to go up.
So what are the forces what are the forces that have the downward momentum that's preventing a challenged person or a disadvantaged person from going up? Are they
education system first?
Are these forces in place? Are these what you say?
There's social-economic forces that are in place.
To do what?
To keep those that are down, because so long as they're down, these forces actually benefit. For example,
expand on that a little.
Okay. So long as there are disabled people in need of help, you're going to have a vested and a CBDH,
which is a program for those people
to help them become self-sufficient. Now, if they became so successful that they actually help the disabled become self-sufficient, they would no longer have justification for their budgets.
Well, I would disagree with it in some respect, because there's always going to be some disadvantaged people. There's always going to be some people that need help.
There's always going to be disadvantaged people.
Or whatever.
But if the number of disabled, once the number of disabled dwindles below a certain level, there's no longer need for the agency for the disabled.
Well, dig this. If you're talking about disabled, you're talking about categories that are beyond the physical, beyond the psychological, beyond the physical. So there's going to be a certain amount of people who are going to be impaired. There's going to be a certain amount of people who are going to be disadvantaged based on the system itself. So
most of these people are programmed to be dependent.
You say program, is that a purposeful thing? They program the people?
Correct.
Is that the group?
So long as they're programmed to be dependent upon the agencies such as CBDH and VESID, these agencies are guaranteed to have a guaranteed source of paychecks for their workers.
They were put in place to be able to do certain things, right?
To eliminate the need for their very existence, but they're not going to do something that's counterproductive.
Wait a minute. If what I hear you saying that there's a need,
right?
And then
so long as that need exists,
they're
going to have a justification for their budget and the salaries of their workers.
Okay, so what's wrong with that?
What's wrong with that is that it's in their self-interest to make sure that those that are in their system never become totally self-sufficient.
Yeah, but what you might not be saying, or I hear your argument. If there's 100,000 people who need this,
right,
today,
right,
and 150,000 tomorrow, added on, then they need more time and more energy to do that particular thing.
But the thing is, the disabled population isn't growing that fast.
Well,
The disabled population is growing in terms of sensory impairments now. We'll just consider the sensory impairments. Only at 2.5% per year.
but now if you
Now,
but
if you have a population growing at only 2.5% per year, how are you going to justify multi-billion-dollar budget?
I would say this, by defining more people as being disabled and impaired.
They don't do that.
Why not? They've already got the statistics that say that homeless,
Right.
they got this.
But what they're doing, they weed you out. They weed you out. Are you on SSI or SSD? If you are, then they put you through another ringer.
Mhm.
For example, I went through the rehab system, and they spit me out. That was the best thing that ever happened.
Because of what?
Because they deemed my objective was unrealistic.
Because of your intelligence and
Right.
okay, but
Not
now
only that,
okay, now we're
was,
talking two different levels now. You was able to use the system. You was able to manipulate the system.
I went through a different route.
You was able to understand, learn, and use
Wow.
the system. Now, the majority of the people that's in that particular category are not able to do that. Would you agree?
Yeah, they're stuck like
All right, then,
insects
in-
in a spider's web.
In their stuckness. And you have to look at yourself and understand that you was a special person that did special things, that had a special incentive. Hear what I'm saying now? You were special. Remember, in the bell-shaped curve, you have a norm, right? Then you have people who
I
are
was a
below.
spike.
You have a norm.
Right.
Then you have people below the norm and above the norm.
Right.
You was above the norm.
But I was above the norm.
What I'm trying to say, above the norm had the same kind of problem as below the norm, but the below the norm is what they use. You got 14% above and below. That's 68% of what they gear everything to. Everybody there is in that middle third. The others are above and below the norm. You was above the norm, but there's a lot more people below the norm who don't have the ability to do what you did. So that's why you have to, not have to do, to create the system to help. So the top people above the norm need to be able to come together with the bottom people above the norm, below the norm, because the system teaches the 68% or 2/3, and that 2/3 is 14% above the norm and 14% below the norm, which is 28, 38, whatever the percentage is. But the system deals with the middle group, and they're above the norm. You learn how. You develop the means. You had the fortitude, the intestinal, whatever you had, the genes, to get above.
But I did that because early on, I was encouraged where my strengths were.
Thank you very much. So again, it's the encouragement, it's the support system, whether it be family, whether it be community, whether it be genes, to help that group or help that person. You are blessed. Now we're talking about giving back. Because the spirit that you have to do that, you got that from somewhere. We ain't even gonna talk about where it come from. Whether it come out the sky, whether it come internal, whether it was born, whether it was genetic. You had something that was given to you, which was a gift. Okay? And people can try to explain where the gift comes. We're just looking at the gift. So that gift is for the common good. Now you're able to create something for the common good based on that gift that you have. Whether it's a spiritual gift from God or whether it's a spiritual gift from Allah was the spirit of, it's a gift, and the gifts are given from the Spirit, the Holy Spirit, whatever you want to define your Holy Spirit as, or whatever category you want to
myself, I put it this way: it's a gift that's intrinsic to the essence.
Define that.
Okay. It's a gift that comes as part of the being, that's part of the trials and tribulations that one goes through to develop.
So
it's
the journey.
like a proof of the material. It's like when you make gold artwork, you have to work it in the furnace to burn off the impurities,
Mm-hmm.
so that when you pull out the piece, it's a gold piece of artwork
Because
without impurities.
and the impurities are the things that's mixed in that don't have as much value, because at the end, that which is pure is more valuable.
Correct.
Would that be inclusive of knowledge that's pure is more valuable than knowledge that's not pure? Define pure.
Okay.
Other than
Pure, pure meaning that you're able to get knowledge of how to acquire knowledge. That's the trick. See, the whole education system is supposed to teach you to teach yourself, but it doesn't do that. It teaches you to memorize, to spit back verbatim.
You say get knowledge to acquire knowledge.
Right.
Is there a word or phrase that you would define that?
Yes. It's called education.
Uh-huh.
Now, education, as the Latin word that it's derived from, actually means is to be able to go above one's abilities,
Would you
to
say
teach oneself.
would you say that education is also the bringing out of that which is within?
It's bringing out that which is within, and it's also assimilating from outside inside.
Okay. Okay.
Now, the whole part of the knowledge system is that you acquire, you integrate, and you apply.
Say it again.
You
Acquire.
acquire, you integrate, and you apply. Then you have knowledge. Because knowledge without the ability to use to solve problems is not knowledge. It's simply disjoint facts. A machine can have disjoint facts. But if you don't have the structure there, the machine can't solve problems.
So then the idea of developing a structure, again back to the algorithm, okay, which is a step-by-step proceeding of how to achieve a certain goal, would be important to be able to establish that ongoing step-by-step in a clearly defined way,
Yes.
because there's a predictable outcome.
Or using another term that pops up is heuristics, rules of thumb.
Heuristic, what is heuristic?
Heuristics refers to rules of thumb.
Would that be also called some kind of measurement?
No. Heuristics are like, if this condition exists and that condition exists, then you do this.
Is that the same as Socrates' philosophy?
Best sources.
I'm not going to get into that bit because
Okay.
I'm going to look into it, but I'm saying
Okay.
that comes from the Socratic philosophy of if you do A and do B, then you're going to get the result C.
Not quite.
So then what is the beginning of that?
The beginning of that is George Boole
Uh-huh.
in what's called Boolean logic. He
Okay, but
has-
that deals with mathematics, right?
It's a field of mathematics called logic.
Okay, now, logic,
It
Where-
goes way back.
okay, way back to Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle?
Correct. But this
Okay.
is far more advanced than
I
they.
understand. Well, I'm not talking about the advance, I'm talking about the origin now.
Yeah.
So the origin of the philosophical construct basically comes out of a time in history, ancient history, where we're talking about certain philosophical constructs and
Correct.
ideas.
Correct.